We usually look at a sapling bursting out of the soil and assume the timeline of events is obvious. The dirt was there first, and the living tree grew out of it. It's the common sense view that life is a byproduct of inert, dead matter. But there is a philosophical inversion to consider. What if the earth is actually born from the tree? In the winter of 2026, heavy rains battered Portugal, turning streets into rivers of floodwater and leaving deep destruction in their wake. When you watch water tear through a town, it is natural to ask for balance, to ask for justice, even to ask a creator to calm the weather and sustain the faith of those who already believe. But we don't ask this to demand absolute, overwhelming proof. Showing an undeniable truth would strip away the very thing that makes us human, our ability to choose. To understand why choice matters, look at Conway's Game of Life. It is a mathematical simulation where a grid of cells turns on or off based entirely on the number of active neighbors. Apply these simple, unthinking rules, and you suddenly get pulsating structures that look startlingly alive. But those moving patterns are making exactly zero choices. The same logic applies to large language models, artificial intelligence systems trained on vast amounts of text to predict the next word in a sequence. They produce sophisticated arguments and flawless mimicry, but they have zero agency. They are modern extensions of Turing machines, which are theoretical models of computing where a system simply reads and writes symbols on a tape according to a fixed table of rules. The mathematician Alan Turing laid the groundwork for these deterministic systems. Today, a strictly materialist worldview argues that we are no different. It suggests that humans are simply complex biological machines, carbon executing code. In this view, love is an evolutionary illusion, and suffering is just a neurological reaction. If we accept that purely mechanical view, we become like a metallic tin man. We function, we process inputs, we execute tasks, but we are hollow inside. We surrender our capacity for meaning, resulting in the functional death of the soul. But we can test this mechanical view against reality by examining the logic that cannot be escaped. Think of it like a living blackboard, where we map out absolute statements. If someone claims it cannot be true that everything is false, well, that statement itself would have to be true. Looping back, it creates a direct contradiction. Therefore, at least one thing is true. Conversely, it cannot be true that everything is true. If it were, that would make falsehoods true, which is absurd. Therefore, at least one thing must be false. Now try this one. Everything is subjective. The problem is, that claim pretends to be a rule that applies to everything, which makes it an objective statement. Therefore, at least one thing is objective. And we know not everything is objective, because our lived experiences depend on us as subjects. You cannot have absolute subjectivity or absolute objectivity standing completely alone. Reality requires both to function, and that means a baseline truth exists. This logical truth leads us directly to agency. If you have no choice, you are not a subject. A subject without choice is merely an object. And if there are no subjects, there is no intention, which means meaning and value dissolve into a dead vacuum. Without value, there is no good or evil. Without good or evil, moral truth collapses. And if moral truth falls, material truth goes with it. Even stating a simple fact like, "this apple is red," requires a framework where right and wrong answers exist. So we arrive at the core problem. If everything that exists is caused by something else, then you have no true choice. Every decision you make is just a domino knocked over by physics. But we just proved that choice must exist for truth to exist. Therefore, not everything can be caused. The logical necessity is that there must exist at least one subject whose choice is entirely uncaused, a primary subject that provides the foundation for our reality. Deny this primary subject, and you deny the possibility of true choice. You renounce your own condition as a human and slip back into functioning purely by habit and impulse, wandering like a mechanical tin man through a deterministic world. Accepting your agency is the light yoke of true existence. It is the realization that the physical world is actually the byproduct of life, not the other way around. We stand as subjects wielding inherited choice, capable of generating meaning within the material world. You can see this meaning surface in everyday life through strange, poetic timing. The author spent a morning translating a blues song based on Psalm 1, focusing his lyrics on the image of a tree with roots so deep they could withstand any storm. Just a few days later, a priest delivered a sermon that focused entirely on Colossians chapter 2, verse 7, a passage centered on being rooted and built up in faith. The overlap was more than thematic. This comparison shows the exact Portuguese vocabulary for roots and solid rock, appearing in the author's private song notes at the same time they were being preached from the pulpit. A similar connection happened under the brilliant night sky of the Alentejo region. I was holding a small stone covered in quartz crystals, thinking about how ancient language captures the relational foundation of the universe. In Hebrew, the word for father is Ab, and the word for son is Ben. Combine them, and you get Aben, the word for stone. This relational pull reaches us in our darkest moments. A friend of mine, Hephaesto, was caught in a deep spiritual crisis, agonizing over his own existence. I told him simply, God loves you. Hours later, a priest who knew nothing of our conversation looked at him and said those exact same words. The loose ends tied together, and for the first time in a long while, he found sleep. The following day, the morning homily centered on this made to Abraham, that his family would one day be as numerous as the stars. These precise, recurring echoes provided a framework for Hephaesto to hold on to. Over the following days, the author noted a visible change as the loose ends of Hephaesto's confusion began to tie themselves together into a new, much more stable beginning. A next recurring image involved a gift from the author's father, a handful of beautiful stones found in the earth. While science maps stars as spheres of gas separated by light years, the author hears a different truth. They were created to keep conscious life company in the dark. This link between the rocks below and the stars above surfaced during a meeting with a man named Sohail. After sharing the story of the quartz stones, they looked into the meaning of Sohail's own name. He initially thought his name meant hard rock. It actually translates to bright star. For the author, these alignments, between a stone in the pocket and a name in the sky, represent the threshold where coincidence meets providence. In this framework, the physical parameters of the universe, time, space, and matter, do not dominate the human will. The physical world acts as a secondary layer, responding to the intent and the charity of the Creator. Under this design, grand celestial alignments like a solar eclipse and the smallest pocket stones serve the same purpose. Through this lens, the void of space functions as an active, intimate dialogue. Accepting a purely materialistic view of the world turns us into dead branches, swept away by the violent current of time and physics. A fish in that same water experiences the river differently. Because it is alive, it has the agency to swim against the current. The Creator does not force recognition or love. True life requires the freedom to choose it. It does not matter what shape time takes. It is not Chronos, the blind, ticking march of chronological time, who makes or unmakes the ultimate meaning of the universe. It is the ultimate meaning, Christ, who makes Chronos kneel. The good is never imposed on us. It is offered freely. From the root gripping the earth to the bright star in the sky, the universe invites us to realize we are known. As the storms recede and the sunlit landscape returns, we are left with a profound privilege. We are subjects, not machines. Accept the light yoke of true existence and choose life.